To
What do you,
that end, you can't do everything all at once, right? I mean, especially somebody's mom, you had QuickBooks to their ERP, and they can't. They're new, even if the desire is there to standardize and new processes, you can't consume it all at once, right? You just humans can't. So you got to get up on the system, right? I hear it all the time in ERP, like we got to get live, get on the system. So where do you see kind of like what is still after go live, what's still manual? What's still like, what ends up being after the go live? How do you see it? Like, how do we this culture of continuous improvement of not just, we'd like to, and then we kick the can down the road, but really, because you're going to have some manual processes before, right? I've seen it. Most companies, aren't systems aren't connected. We see that all the time. So what, what do you typically see that is not, that's a gap still
Yeah,
in
where's that
terms of
next step?
yeah.
Yeah. So I've even encouraged my clients to do these couple of things I'm gonna share with you. So one is planning. What I find is that to dive right in, if they weren't doing planning in a system like running MRP and doing those kinds of things before, that's a lot to get started with, particularly if they've had trouble with inventory accuracy or if their bombs weren't quite as clean as they needed to be. Get those things right first. Focus on making sure the team knows when to do the inventory transactions and you're spot checking your inventory, making sure your counts are accurate. Make sure that's right first. Make sure your data is good, your bombs are good and clean. Focus there first. We'll add planning later on once we are confident, because if your data's bad, again, planning's just not going to work. And if you aren't keeping good, accurate inventory, planning's not going to help you. And so get that foundation in there first. The other piece that we will help somebody who's growing with, or again, going from that paper system to something a little more sophisticated, is everybody gets the bill of materials. They understand that is the components that go into the finished good. I've got that. In Business Central, the routings are what really throws people up a little bit because that's new for them. And I'll describe them as it's going to be the process that the steps that we're going to go through to produce whatever we're making. And folks tend to want to overcomplicate that right out of the gate, particularly in leadership. I'm talking to all you CFOs out there. They want to capture real-time tracking and do all the things. And I'm like, it's too much. Start with the basics on your routes. Keep them very,
Keep them
very
simple.
simple
If you've
to
never
start
used
with.
them before,
Yep,
try to get something, right? Try to get
exactly.
something. I don't know if you see this, but I talk to customers all the time and I see this all the time. It's very all or nothing. It's like, oh, I don't want to do any of them or I want to do all of them. It's like, no, can't we Goldilocks this? Can't we just start off with a few that provide, again, 80/20, provide the value and then build on that?
Yeah, let's use some time standards. Let's just get a little bit of labor and overhead built in there. Maybe it's even just a one line route, one or
Maybe it's
two
a
lines,
template.
nothing
Maybe
crazy. Yeah, let's start with the basics. Then as we kind of get everything else rolling, we start doing some planning. We can then get more detailed on our routes. Once you kind of start seeing how these things are going, you can then manage a little bit more detail. That's the other piece. We talked about adoption. You throw, and we talked about slowing down the production process. You throw all this crazy level detailed tracking from these routes at your production staff, and gosh, you're going to be lucky if they don't all quit because it's just too much. Don't slow down the whole business for the sake of trying to capture a lot of data. My question is always, if you had this perfect level of detailed data, what would you do with it? Usually
mm,
they can't answer the question. And if they can't answer the question, then we're not going to do it.
just, I just want it. I just want it. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, or just
They
like just in
think that's
case.
what they need. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a lot
just
of
yeah.
just in case data. That's what you see type stuff. Yeah.
Just in case data. Oh, it's the world's worst. Yeah.
That's
I might
interesting.
need that.
Yeah.
Well, we do it in our homes, right? I mean, let's be honest. We do it in our homes. We got all this stuff in the house. We're like, oh,
Yeah,
might
I might
keep
need it.
that, but there's that whole like social media TikTok guy where like he has this like old dad has this like one piece of wood or something. Ever seen that video? He's got this like a piece of wood that he has down in the basement, and they need and they're like trying to like prop a bed up, and the guy goes down there. I said, I need a block of wood, and it's got to look like this. And then like the old dad's like, I have that. And he walked. I have. So that my point of being about telling that story is just like it's just in case, right? I'm gonna keep this just in case. It's like what?
Because there's like, if I find a problem, I don't know what happened. I can't troubleshoot my problem. I have all this data to go back and find it, type thing.
Yeah.
It's like that. It doesn't usually pan out, and you're kind of tail wagging the dog type of thing, where like they're spending so much time trying to spec out how they want to do the process to get the data, but they never actually implement, and they get fatigued, and they just kind of like, and the whole time it's just getting inaccurate, like you mentioned. I mean, it's very similar, like budgeting or forecasting. It's like we do this, like obviously in your business, you're saying, okay, what do I think I'm going to sell this year? Or what am I going to spend this year? You usually start off with like a guess, and then it's an educated guess. It's a guess. And then you refine perfect. I use this analogy all the time is like a plane takes off from New York and goes to LA. It is off course 90% of the time. But the plane, the autopilot is correcting all the time. And budgeting or things are like kind of like that. You start off and then you course correct, and eventually you nail it. But if you don't start, you can't actually get the feedback to course correct.
Exactly.
Everybody gets stuck in the pre-flight routine. They just never get off the ground.
That's very true. Yeah.
So Stephanie, what you talked about the BOM and the manual steps and the routings, which is really good. This is something that we do, something that Cat Talk does itself, right? Because a lot of our customers, we tell them that like we do routings with our integration. We try to get customers to use them, and I do hear more about that these days. That customers are like, yes, can you do routings? They ask that, which is good, which
That's
means
good.
manufacturers are thinking in the right direction in terms of those routings. Now, so you're talking about the things that come in phase 2 or after scheduling and planning. And I think I want to kind of tie that in because I want to tie scheduling and planning in because before that's that BOM accuracy, right? Which you talked about. And before that is like, where's that data coming from? And that's where we kind of play is like before you get to scheduling and planning and MRP, right? You got to back up into the process. But like most people, I'm totally get it. You want to get to the fun part, right? Like let's just skip ahead to the fun part. Let's get scheduling and planning. We bought this ERP for the scheduling and planning. Let's get that going. And then it's like, won't. No, we got to get the process of getting the data in there. We got to get the clean data. We got to have a good process. So they can't get to that really exciting part of the scheduling and planning because there's all this pre-work that you have to do to get it in there.
Yeah. I spoke at Community Summit last year, and one of my sessions was on planning. And I had lots of folks in there who were they wanted to get started, or maybe they had just gotten started and some of those things. And there was a guy in there, I blew his mind a little bit because he said, we bought this, exactly what you said. We bought this system so we can do scheduling and planning. And we had some conversation prior, and this is in front of the whole room, by the way. But I'm asking questions like, how accurate is your inventory? How often are you doing cycle counts? Are you doing physicals? How do you feel about the accuracy of your inventory? And he said, well, that's why we want to do planning, because our inventory is not right. And I'm like, wait, that's backwards. Yeah.
That's backwards.
So we had a whole conversation in front of a room of maybe 60 people about we have to get our inventory accurate first. And to do that, we need all these data elements in place, right? You need to understand what items you have. You need to know where they're located. You need to know what's on your bill of materials. All of that flows into it. And then you have the business processes for how those transactions get updated. Until all that works, planning's worthless.
Yeah. It's like,
how are you going to plan your life if you don't even know what schedule you're working, right?
Right. Right.
Like let's plan our vacation. Well, I don't know what days I'm off. Well, what am I going to do? Yeah. That's, of course, days off for folks like us and in business and consulting. You don't get too many of those days, even when you have
Coming
the
off a
days
long
off, right?
holiday weekend, I tried to
Yeah.
take a few days off. I think I did work pretty much every day a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. Well, Stephanie, this has been a great, a great call to really hear about your experience with those grown up mom and pop shops. To what's also good when I talk to ERP consultants like yourself, because what we do, right? We're on the front end. We're in the same game. We believe in process. We want to get the data in there. We want to make that, as Scott would say, reduce that friction between, to make it easier to get good quality data, to automate those processes for customers. But we're fighting the same good fight, which is like, hey, we got to have good processes, good engineering processes, good data management processes, good standards. You can't, if you back up into where we are, if you don't have a good starting point, then it just, as it flows downhill, it's no good. So it was good to talk to someone in ERP, because what I see and what Scott has seen in our consultants, everybody in the organization sees. Sometimes you wonder, is it just us? But it's everybody wonders, is that just us? But it's good to know that you're out there fighting the good fight, and this is a common thing.
It is common, and I think that's important for folks to hear as well. The challenges we're talking about, everybody's had them. When I worked in industry, I was a manufacturing manager. I had the same problems. I had the same blind spots, and we just see it every single day, and we're able to see it across all different kinds of manufacturers, all different kinds of customers. We all have the same challenges. So we're not that special.
No, I,
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, whenever I'm talking to a customer, and you ask them questions, hard questions, and sometimes, even when I was a consultant, you ask them hard questions, and they kind of get sheepish and they just don't want to tell you. Like, they kind of feel bad about it. Like, it's like, oh, I got a dirty house, right? Like, oh my God, I don't want to show you my house. I got a dirty house. It's like, everybody has a dirty house. Like,
Right.
this isn't you're not unique to you. I
Mhm.
know it feels that way, and you kind of might be embarrassed, or you might be like, oh my God, we're terrible. I'm like, no, you're like everybody else. I mean, you're like everybody else. We're all this way. And that's why we need someone to help us point out, like, hey, no problem. This is normal. You're not 10 years behind. You're right where you need to be, and you're set up. We're just going to take you to the next stage.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think folks that are coming to us, if we didn't do their implementation, they maybe are coming to us for, like I mentioned, the second opinion service, where we just go take a look, and we're giving them a document that documents all the uglies. And
Mhm.
Right.
I've had folks go, I'm so embarrassed of this document now that and I'm like, stop. That's why you called us. One,
Yeah,
that's
that's
why
right. We're
you
here.
knew something wasn't right. And two, these are the things we see from everybody. We're seeing the same things over and over. And so your knowledge is power, right? Now you know, and now we can fix it. So
That's right.
yeah.
Yeah. If you can't beat tell us as customers, and try to tell it to ourselves too. You can't beat yourself up for stuff you didn't know. The not knowing, now you can say, I go out and find out and learn. That's why you came to us. You said, I know I don't know, and I need to find that out. And that's the power. The power is, okay, I recognize I don't know. I go find someone to help me know. Once I know, as long as I go to fix it, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. That's a normal human process of learn, realization, discovery, and then application of whatever it is that you need to do to change. So
Yeah.
that's all normal stuff.
It's all normal.
So Stephanie, as we wrap up here, I enjoyed this conversation. Like I said, it's good to talk to others in the field, to hear their similar stories. And what's one or two things, as a final thought, you would want people to take away from this conversation, from your experience with manufacturing companies as a consultant?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to my three things again. Process, technology, automation, in that order.
In
Get
that
your
order.
process and your data cleaned up first. Spend your time and effort to really get those things aligned well, and then use technology to do it better. And lastly, use automation to do it faster. But having that data and process in line, gosh, spend your time and money there.
Yeah. I know I'm sure you do this in your job is like, and we do it in ours too. One of the first things we do when I know we implement, I do this when we implement customers. One of the first things you do is you do that discovery, like, well, show me your process. How do you know that this goes here, right? How do you know this data goes here? How do you know that? Why do you put that there? Just like, and then as long as that is solid, you can, okay, now let's get the tool in place. And now let's make that easier. And then once that's working, okay, now let's automate that, right? We tell that. I think it's even on our website for we had this in the Cat Talk journey where like the first step is not automation. That's like the top. You know, you only get there. Only a select number of people get there. It's not something that everybody gets, and that's okay.
That's okay. You just used my favorite consulting question, by the way. Why? Why do you
Why?
do
Yeah,
that? Why do
yeah,
we need that?
right.
Folks get tired of hearing
That's
that
it.
from me.
Yeah. That's a tough
So
one. That's a tough one. Not
Yeah.
yeah,
people always know. They always know. Yeah.
yeah. They don't always know. Which usually followed up with like, well, that's how we've always done it. Yeah. That's that everybody says that. I totally get that. So Stephanie, it's a great conversation. Where can people, so that we can put them in our show notes, where can people find you? I know that you're a big Kentucky fan, but you don't live in Kentucky, I don't think. So they probably won't see you at the bourbon shop or at UK or so where can they find you online, and how can they get a hold of you if they want that second look
Yeah,
service that you
absolutely.
have?
Yeah, please join me on LinkedIn. Steph Clark is that's who I am on LinkedIn. But you can also find us on elliottclarkconsulting.com. And I also have my own personal Business Central how-to blog called Dynamics
Nice.
Power Play. So it's dynamicspowerplay.com. Any of those
Nice.
locations, you can find me. And I often write how to do things on NBC that I have literally seen clients struggling with. I take that and then turn it into a blog post. So follow
Nice.
me, find me, say hello.
That's a lot of value. That's great, Stephanie. I sure there's a lot of value. So we'll link that in the show notes, and then really appreciate you coming on. It's been nice talking to you. I always enjoy these conversations, especially with folks, in the channels that we work with. It's just always good to meet people and understand, like, where they are, what they do. So thanks a lot for coming on.
No, thanks for having me. Love to talk manufacturing anytime.
Thanks. Well, again, great conversation. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Stephanie, for joining. This is another edition of the CAD Talk Integrate Intelligently podcast. Thanks for joining. Subscribe, and we'll see you next time.